Hello and welcome back, or welcome if you are new. My name is Gibson, and I am an author, counselor, and founder of the Personal Development School. And in today's video, we are going to talk about how to spot the warning signs to see if somebody you're dating could be a narcissist or actually have narcissistic personality disorder. And my hope for you is that by the end of this video, not only will you look at this concept differently, but we'll also cover some of the key ingredients that are required to heal at the subconscious level from any sort of narcissistic abuse so you can understand how being with a narcissist in a relationship actually affects you. And we will also talk about a very shocking piece of information that you want to stay tuned for towards the end of this as well, that will help you learn how to rebalance some of the dynamics that are related between addiction and addictive behaviors, and intermittent reinforcement that comes with being with a narcissist. So if you want to unpack that sort of addictive component of being with a narcissist, stay tuned until the end. So first and foremost, there tends to be a lot of discussion about narcissists, and I find that every single client I've ever worked with who ends up in a relationship with a narcissist almost always had the experience of, in the first few weeks of dating, feeling a little bit overwhelmed by how quickly this person was trying to build a deep bond with them. In other words, it's the love bombing stage. And what you'll see as one of the first sort of red flags to pay attention to is if there's a lot of love bombing or rapid building of intimacy. What you'll see a lot of the time is narcissists tend to want to detect everything about you and who you are and your inner world so that they can then use that information to kind of impress you and reel you in. And it's from that space that they will sort of paint this idealized version of what they think that you're looking for in terms of who they are and what they bring to the table. So if they know, for example, that you're somebody who values traveling or exploration, they are going to paint the picture of all the places you are going to travel to and all the places you'll explore and all of these different things that you'll do together. So they tend to, in the early stage, not just number one, love bomb, but they also tend to put this like build together of trying to create this like very ideal image of your future with them so that you kind of lower your guard and really lower your defenses and end up opening up to them and really wanting to connect. And narcissists are experts at getting you to build a fantasy bond. So you'll see when we talk about different topics around limerence, for example, and how we can have this like overwhelming infatuation for people. So much of recovering from a breakup or if a relationship doesn't work when it comes to limerence is that it's harder to unpack and heal the fantasy bond than the actual reality of most situations. Like if a relationship fails, it's often because it wasn't working. There was more pain. There were more drawbacks than benefits to being in that relationship. Whereas if we have a fantasy bond, we paint this whole picture of like this idealized perfection. And it means that when you break up with that person, that image is taken away from you. Like this perfect future that you have is taken away from you. So funnily enough, whether narcissists do this consciously or subconsciously, they are really good at painting the fantasy bond of everything that your life will be. And in doing so, they know on some level that they are fostering a deeper attachment with you and making it more difficult for you to leave them. And one surprising fact that we'll talk about at the end of this video is whether or not narcissists actually struggle with abandonment trauma. So when it comes to that, that's a huge red flag. Building intimacy too quickly, aka love bombing, and really trying to build this fantasy bond with you. Really get all of that information out about what you're looking for and paint that picture for you for the future. The next big thing you'll see early on is narcissists take this sense of grandiosity with them everywhere they go. So they may really early on in the relationship want you to know how great they are, right? They'll talk about their achievements. They'll talk about how capable they are. They want you to admire them. They want to paint this picture of how fantastic and special they are of a person to sort of make you feel lucky to be with them. And they're trying to establish that dynamic because narcissists tend to actually really fear not having the upper hand in a relationship. Now, deep down, I believe this to be because they have deep, deep, deep subconscious, even perhaps unconscious wounds around powerlessness and feeling like at some deep level they don't matter enough as they are. Hence why they compensate for this through seeking superiority, seeking the sense of specialness or uniqueness to feel like they matter. And they tend to really want to have the upper hand in all of their relationship dynamics. And you'll see that narcissists tend to share this um dynamic that other people have when they come through a lot of trauma, where they see relationships as this ongoing power struggle, and rather than a relationship being about two people connecting and supporting each other and communicating through things and hearing each other out and building together, instead narcissists tend to see relationships as this dynamic of who has the upper hand. They constantly want to feel like they're the person with the upper hand, so they'll in the early stages make you feel like it's you with the upper hand to get out all that information, to draw out the fantasy bond dynamic. But then they'll start shifting into, well, look at how great I am. And you're lucky to be with me and all the things we're going to do in the future. And so they start shifting into that power dynamic. And so we can call number 3 here that grandiosity piece. And number 4, we can call the need to have the upper hand in the power struggle dynamic. Number 5, we will see manipulation in this relationship quite early on. What I always think of when it comes to manipulation is whenever we don't have healthy emotional literacy. So whenever we don't know how to communicate our needs directly, we end up manipulating. The subconscious mind is a needs meeting machine. So it's constantly seeking to get needs met. Now, there's some attachment styles that may engage in low level manipulation, but narcissists tend to engage in much more consistent or pervasive or severe forms of manipulation. So I'll give you an example. Let's say we have a fearful avoidant or an anxious preoccupied who's needing reassurance from their partner, but doesn't know how to be vulnerable and ask for it in a direct way. Well, you may see that they start relying on more like manipulative strategies. For example, trying to make their partner jealous to elicit a response to then in turn get their needs met for validation or reassurance. They might think to themselves, well, if I see a big response from this person, it will let me know that they care and thus reassure me. So trying to test a partner or trying to get a reaction from them, that is a manipulative strategy, right? But we may see that as kind of like a one-off every so often in a relationship. Whereas with a narcissist, we will see a lot of skills around their capacity to manipulate. They may manipulate through pressure, through testing, through seeking to elicit a reaction from somebody, to use guilt tripping dynamics. You'll see all these different forms of how they constantly manipulate in order to get their needs met. So you may see, for example, in a romantic relationship, especially in these early stages where you're looking for these flags, that if you want to go away for a weekend with friends, and they try to say something about it and it's not well received by you, you're like, well, of course I'm going to go away with friends. This is my friend's event or party or wedding or whatever it might be. If they can't get you to not go by just talking about it or indirectly shaming you for wanting to do something like that, they may resort to even more manipulative tactics like guilt tripping you. Like, how could you leave me all alone? And really like pulling that sort of card to try to change your behaviors out of that emotional leverage they have from guilt. So you'll see versions of that, right? That won't be the only version. You'll see, a majority of dynamics like this where there's constantly the pressure or the picking apart or the shaming you or guilting you or, all these different things, all as means to get their needs met. And again, you'll start seeing this take off generally quite quickly in the early stages of a relationship. Now, as time goes on in a relationship, some other really important red flags to look for are things like controlling behavior, right? You'll definitely see these dynamics of like wanting to control or shift or change various aspects of your life. So this can be anything from you being in a position where they want to control what you're wearing or who you're spending time with. You'll often see as well that narcissists in sort of like the later stages of dating will even start like pinning you against your friends, your family members. They really like to isolate. And I think of like the analogy of a spider wanting to like create a web and sort of draw somebody into the web. And, at the end of the day, narcissists are just individuals with trauma. So I'm not trying to like shame them for this, but we also have to recognize that doesn't mean it's okay and that these things are healthy, right? So you have to be able to say, okay, that's somebody who's in trauma. I can have some compassion and I am going to have really strong boundaries because this is not a healthy relationship dynamic to engage in. But when you see this, I think of this spider in a web and they're like drawing the person in, right? Isolating them to sort of capture them in a sense. And it's funny because, narcissists deep down have an unconscious fear of abandonment. And part of all of these tactics of controlling, of having the upper hand in the power struggle of the relationship dynamic, pitting people against each other to sort of create more isolation in the relationship. All of these things and all of the strategies behind them are literally for the sake of not being abandoned, right? It's like, if I can control you, if I can make you think that you're so lucky to be with me, if I can have the upper hand in the relationship dynamic, if I can build this fantasy of this bond of who you think I am, if I can manipulate you to keep getting my needs met, if I can, control all these facets of life, then you're less likely to abandon me. So you'll see that tends to be a huge dynamic. Now, other really early red flags that you may see as well is that narcissists really struggle to admit fault. So they may take a very long time to actually say, "Oh, I made a mistake. I was wrong." They may never say it, right? And if they do admit fault, sometimes it's actually just as a strategy to further manipulate the next situation. So they sort of like give in and admit fault as a means of sort of creating this picture of like, okay, I admitted fault here, so now you owe me in these places. But as a general rule, you just won't see them admit fault. And they can often really put other people down quite frequently. It feeds back into this need for grandiosity. The more I can, as a person, prop myself up by putting others down, the more I seem like I'm special or unique or grandiose, or, you're lucky to be with me kind of dynamic. So you'll see a lot of these different things. And of course, later on into relationships, you'll see some of that typical like gaslighting type of patterns where they can make you question or doubt your reality, really spinning things around, deflecting, shirking any accountability for their own behaviors, really struggling to apologize if ever even doing something like that. So you'll see a lot of these different dynamics with a typical narcissist, but those are some of the ones you'll see most early on. Now, I do want to say recovering from any kind of relationship where there is narcissistic abuse can be very tricky and very challenging. I also want to say that if you want to do a deep dive into healing, we've got a whole course you can actually check out for free for 7 days, which in the case of this course will be more than enough time to get through this course. So if you need that extra support, you can definitely check it out down below. And it's all about overcoming narcissistic abuse. And what we talk about in this course is how to not just understand the narcissist so you can stop personalizing the narcissist behavior, but how to really reprogram the different imprints that were left. So narcissists leave a lot of core wounds, right? Fear of being unsafe, not good enough, unworthy, unlovable, betrayed or struggling to trust, trapped, helpless, powerless. Like, there's a lot of core wounds that happen when we're with a narcissist that get imprinted into the subconscious mind because of the repetition and emotion of painful behaviors that you're exposed to. And so you can dig into reprogramming those core wounds, relearning healthy boundaries, because we know that if you've been with a narcissist in a romantic relationship, your boundaries were stripped, and you probably even made negative emotional associations to the idea of setting boundaries. You probably have a lot of nervous system dysregulation, like you're in fight or flight more often and feel more reactive and less grounded and rooted, because that is literally one of the outputs of the trauma of being with a narcissist. So you'll see a lot of these core wounds, boundary issues, nervous system dysregulation issues. There's also a huge dynamic of really outsourcing your sense of self. Like, your whole world becomes the narcissist. And so in this course, we cover like how to relearn your sense of self, identity, a path forward for you, relearn what your needs are, and sort of create like a mission and vision for your life and your future. And then we also cover the addictive component of getting over the narcissist, which is we use a couple tools for how to really disconnect from that deep attachment that exists there with a narcissist, because of that fantasy bond piece that we were talking about, because of the intermittent reinforcement as well. And it's, when you think of a gambler and they use the slot machines and they don't win, don't win, don't win, don't win, and then they win, and then they don't win, don't win. It mirrors, that what people are actually addicted to is not the slot machine, but the intermittent reinforcement and the way that affects the brain, especially with dopamine signals. And so when we look at the narcissist, you get that put down, put down, put down, compliment, nice thing, grandiose time, put down, put down, put down. And so it can create the same type of addiction at the subconscious level of mind. So we target how to really break out of that as well. So I have some exciting news, which is that we are doing $1,000 off of our lifetime membership sale to the Personal Development School, which means you get access to literally everything at PDS for your entire rest of your life. Essentially, that entails all of our different courses you have lifetime access to, I do 4 live webinars a week, every single week. You can access them ongoing, and you get access to all of our daily community events. So I'd love to see you on the other side, and you can access it by using the link in the description box below. So anyways, really powerful course that you can get through in 7 days, print off the workbook, all that good stuff if this is something that you're struggling with. It will also help if you've had any narcissist in your family, as a close friend, anything of that nature with close proximity of relationship to a narcissist. And if you have any questions, you can let me know in the comments as well down below. So I hope you enjoyed this video for today. Thank you so much for watching and for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in future videos.